Does the method of telling a boring story of your anxiety rather than assigning any deeper meaning to it mean that searching for answers through psychotherapy about why you might be experiencing anxiety all of a sudden is futile? Does Dare truly believe that the why isn't important? Oh, that's a good question. Really pinning us
Yes.
against the wall there. There's another, a different question from that, but yeah. All right, go ahead. That's a good one.
That's a fantastic question. So thank you. Thank you for asking it. So there's again so much to say about this, but let's keep it short. So yes, to answer your question, Dare says it is unimportant. It is interesting to know, especially for personal reasons, to really understand like what factors have contributed to the development of my anxiety disorder. But, and here comes the but, it is not important to know that in order to heal it. It's interesting to know. So if you feel like you need to know it, absolutely, you can look for the reasons. But if you're asking if it is necessary to go back to the past and come to term with it, with all your childhood traumas, it is not. It is absolutely not. Why? Because anxiety is a behavioral problem. It's a fear of fear. It is a maladaptive thought processes, false interpretations of sensations. So this is at the core of anxiety. And in order to heal that, we do not need to go back to your mom, to your dad, to your teachers, and your dog dying at the age of 8, and so
What
on and
happened
so
when you were
forth.
3 years old? Always 3. Always 3 years old.
And
Wow.
it's a pity. It's a pity, because I've seen so many clients like spending months and years and so much money on trying to come to terms with their past traumas. And it's like you heal one trauma and there's another one, and there's another one. And the deeper you dig, the more traumas you find. It's a never-ending story until you also find the traumas of your grandparents and start to work on them.
Right. And you're like, I still have anxiety.
Still have anxiety. No, it is not necessary. What is, of course, if there is an obvious reason for your anxiety that it has to do with a certain trauma, then absolutely go ahead and do therapy for that. But you can always use Dare alongside that therapy in order to deal with your anxiety in the here and now.
Right. And the whole point of really going back to the past is not to like debunk any sort of trauma therapy. That's a different conversation, right? So if you've dealt with trauma, making peace with trauma, going through like that with therapy and things like that is one thing. We're talking about, do I have to go back and figure out why I'm having anxiety because I'm having anxiety? The only, what was the question? Oh shoot, where did it, tell a boring story of your anxiety rather than assigning any deeper meaning to it. Like you go back to your past. The only reason you go back to the past is to help you live here now. That's really the only reason. The only reason to go back through the past is to say, well, right now here is not working out so good. So what's not working out so well here? Sometimes, right, old patterns and behaviors can kind of seep up into the present from the past. But anxiety, like Dare, is learning how to be where you are. Just be here. The only reason you need to know why you're feeling anxiety, definitely go and check to see, is there a bear? Am I on fire? Is there a murderer? Is an animal eating me, right? Is there danger right now? Is my body sent me fear and I am in danger? If you are, leave immediately or fight it. But if feeling anxiety, it's a misfire, right? I'm having, my body has sent me fear, but there's no danger. We love the letter Y, favorite letter of the alphabet, because then we go, let's turn inward, put life on hold. Better go find this. We'll figure out why. Why am I feeling this? Is it a thought? Is it my sensation? Is it a danger about to happen? It doesn't really matter. I use my inappropriate examples on the Dare Advance call, but it's like, you don't really have to know why you're having explosive diarrhea to know what to do while you're having explosive diarrhea the minute you're having it, right? So Dare is like, what do you do now, right? Now what? Whether it was from bad tacos or too much whatever, it's now what? So, I am full of energy. Now what? Your power with this is always in your now what. And Dare is like, are you treating your now what as danger? Or it's, tell a boring story. And you probably got that from me. I wrote that somewhere at some point. It's like, we tend to tell a very detailed story, right? Aida, right? You got to call it.
Yeah, of course.
Aida, let me tell you about these thoughts. For the next 20 minutes, I'm going to tell you about this 5-minute panic attack. and I'm going to tell you in detail, and I'm going to have violins and background music and the drum and the smoke machine. And I'm going to tell you how scary it was. And that's we are very good at. We have very creative brains, very detailed descriptions of how scared I am. And me, because as you see, I'm the jerk of us two, right? I'm kind of the
Yeah,
asshole.
right.
It's like, so you were scared. Okay, now what? Were you in danger? Or were you really, 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 I had a whole lot of fear. And that's what's really scary, because there's fear with no place to go, right? So it's this idea of tell a boring story. It's, oh, I just feel scared right now, rather than I have to focus on this feeling that I don't like and it's so awful and I have to figure out why. Usually people do that so I can get rid of it, to calm down, to feel better. Remember, this is not weirdly the goal. The goal is stop fighting so your body learns how to calm itself down, right? So that's the idea of tell a boring story. Every time I feel a rush of adrenaline, it doesn't really freaking matter. It matters of how I respond to that rush of adrenaline. That's what sets the scene for the next time.
And also keep in mind, guys, that the conclusions our mind comes up with are rarely, if ever, the truth. Michelle, you hear this too, I'm sure, many times, like, my anxiety is because of, and it's like it's a fact, it's because of what happened when I was 4, it's because of this and because of that, and that ties into it, and that too. So I know if just things would have been differently, I would not have this anxiety disorder.
Mm-hmm.
And, it could be true that some things played into it, but it is rarely, if ever, the truth. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, for people, sometimes it almost feels freeing to assign the blame to something else for having this. But also keep in mind that this takes away your responsibility and your power. And this is really what it is. Anxiety has to do with your thought processes. Anxiety has to do with your interpretation of things, not with your past traumas. So it's bittersweet, because on one hand, okay, it's my responsibility. I'm doing this to myself. But on the other hand, it also means that you have the power to change that. So now it sounds weird, but own it.
Right, because it
right?
still ends you up with, now what? Oh, if all, for me, it was a movie theater, right? I was no problem. And it's suddenly Pandora's box opens up and now I have a panic attack in the movie theater. And I can go back and spend the rest of my life going, if only I didn't go to the movie that day. Oh, my life would be so different if I could just go back in time. That's your now what? You're spending your entire now what with your brain in the past, right? Like, oh, if only, right? Anxiety loves the past and loves the future. And what we're doing is we're just fighting through our present day. This is actually what the problem is. It's this, not where our thoughts go. It's how we're treating it. So it's more like you hear me talk on any of the other group calls. I say it all the time. It is what it is. Now what? And it is what it is. It's not like, I sound kind of like a jerk, but it's like, this is all the things, and this is what's happening right now that's not in my control, but I've noticed this is where we are right now. Now what? Like, here we are in COVID land, right? Everything's in lockdown. So we can go, oh, we're so stuck. I can't go anywhere. And what you do is you just spin your wheels by focusing on things that you can't undo, that are not in your control now, and that you can't decide are not going to be in the future. So notice what you find. And yeah, all right, we're stuck home right now. Now what? Now what? I can stare at that, or I can put my energy towards my now what? What can I do that's different? Where can I be engaged, rather than engaged in the past, engaged in ideas of the future, engaged in all my present discomforts? Notice all those things and then engage through that, engage in life.